Good evening, and thank you so much for attending our part two of the We Can't Wait Regional Summit. My name is John Mina, and I am the founder and executive director of Crash, the creative resistance acting in solidarity for humanity. I am really appreciated and humbled by our community and by everybody who has taken the time today to come and follow up with an excellent series. We are looking to really make an impact here in the community, and we cannot do it alone. So I just want to take this time to acknowledge all of my panelists and all of you that are in attendance. As I mentioned earlier, last time it was a very instructor-led event where we spent about 2 hours kind of talking about income disparities, healthcare crises, but we took up all that time. And we want to mobilize now. We want to take everything that we took from part one and we want to put that into action with the people. So it is very important. It is imperative that you all are a part of that discussion. So we are going to have an open forum about what mobilization is. And I look forward to having the greater Central Pennsylvania a part of that conversation today. I look forward to your ideas, your feedback, your questions. As Crash and We Can't Wait continue to partner, we will continue to move the needle where change needs to happen. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people. And we're going to have to put it back in the hands of the people. Fred Hampton. And the timing of this quote after Judas and the Black Messiah coming out is ever so timely, because there is where the people are, there is the power. And last time we focused on bringing awareness and educating. Now we need to focus on taking that awareness, taking that education, and mobilizing the masses. You guys know what the issues are. And now we as a community together will tackle these issues and mobilize and put actions together. So tonight's agenda, we already did the welcome. I am going to formally recap part one for you guys a little bit. And then we're going to talk about mobilization in Lancaster with Nijmi Zarenko of the Poor People's Campaign. She's going to go into how all of these things connect. Then we're going to open it up for an open discussion about mobilization with Carmina Taylor of We Can't Wait. And following that, we're going to go over our next steps in putting this into action, mobilizing the people with the plan. So that's tonight's agenda. Thank you so much for attending. Next slide. The We Can't Wait Summit, part one. Powerful, powerful summit. And we were 2 months ago, back in December, we were a town grieving. But we've been a town grieving for years, way before the murder of Ricardo Muniz, way before the countless state-sanctioned murders by Black and Brown people throughout this country, for the history of this country. We have been a community of grieving disenfranchised individuals. It came a time to find an action. And the wonderful people in Carmina and We Can't Wait came to us because we have a mission and a vision that are simple. Our mission at Crash is that there will be a society, creating a replicable society where its citizens are treated with dignity and respect. The vision is that all of our biggest financial and behavioral health concerns are no longer figured out by the criminal justice system, no longer criminalizing poverty, no longer criminalizing addiction, whether that be alcohol or substances known as drugs, no longer criminalizing and executing mental health. But what does that look like? We went over with several awesome presenters in Hobie Crystal, Kevin Ressler, Carmina, and Nicole Vasquez. And we went over what the issues are that Lancaster County is facing. And when it came down to it, all of these issues connected. Whether we were talking about the healthcare disparities, the public safety disparities, or the income inequalities. What it came down to was the people's basic healthcare needs and the wealth gaps. And then the state and the criminal justice system coming together to inflict its will on the people. And so back on September 13th, 2020, a man was murdered by the state. I want to repeat that again. A man was murdered by a state that failed him. For 10 years, it had been publicly recognized that there was issues, and there were several institutions that Ricardo had passed throughout those years that all failed him. The school district failed him. The healthcare system failed him. The Lancaster County Prison failed him. The Lancaster City Police failed him. That is 5 institutions right there. The narrative right now in Lancaster County still is that a man with a knife deserved to die. But I challenge that notion even to this day. When a society cannot handle its citizens' biggest needs and they feel that they need to end their lives, that society has failed that citizen. And the state murdered Ricardo Munez. Why do I say the state and why do I hound on that? Because the way that the laws are written, that police officer did nothing wrong. Again, the way that the laws are written, he is a free person and will have no repercussion for that, regardless of how you feel about that, if that is okay or if that is not okay. That is how it is written. So what I tell you there is the state murdered him. And as we continue to reshape and reshift that narrative, we cannot wait. This will not happen ever again in our community. One is too many, and we will not let this happen again. As Kevin went through the disparities in income, it became evidently clear that throughout the years, our US history was built off of a working class and a ruling class, looking at from slavery and so on, going out through the 300 plus years that we have been on this continent before we were even a country. We have to challenge that status quo. We have to challenge it. And now we sit here and we look to push forward. Now we have given the tools and brought out the awareness piece. We know what's broken. We know that the wealth gap and the healthcare gaps are literally ending people's lives. They're taking years off of people's lives. If you think about what that looks like from the mental health perspective and what that looks like from just a life expectancy perspective. I'm talking about all marginalized people here, whether you're one of my Black, brown, or white brothers or sisters. If you are poor, you are marginalized. And this system continues to teach us that you have to operate within it to not get cannibalized by it. And that is a flawed narrative. That is political propaganda that both the left and the right have used to campaign over the last 60 plus years. What I will say to you is this: as a community, we are aware of the demons that haunt us. We don't like that feeling. We have come out through countless protests, through countless petitions, through countless social media engagements, different community Zooms like this, and we can no longer wait for change. So we are going to take that awareness as a community, and we are formally mobilizing today. That is the recap of part one of awareness. I really thank you so much for listening to me now. I'm going to position us to our next segment. All right. Well, our first guest speaker, and I'm super proud to have her. I have Nijmi Zarenko of the Poor People's Campaign, and they are a rock solid org here, have been doing work for a long, long time. I have over the year I've been doing work. I've only been doing work here for a year. I've been more connected with Tammy. This is my first time interacting with Nijmi, so I'm super excited about that. But they have been doing a lot of awesome mobilizing, campaigning for the poor. And I'm not going to take away what they do. I'm going to let her explain, and she's going to go over some mobilization stuff here in Lancaster. And I just want to formally introduce you. And thank you so much, Nijmi.
Yeah, you could either leave that up or you could just take it down for right now. Thank you, Teddy. So I just want to thank you all very much for having me. I'm really grateful to be here with you tonight. From the Poor People's Campaign and also Put People First Pennsylvania, which is one of the organizations in the Poor People's Campaign. The reason why I'm really committed to working with the statewide coalition and the other groups that are working together is because I can see that the We Can't Wait statewide coalition is very, very committed to building statewide power in Pennsylvania for poor and dispossessed people. And that is also the mission of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. We have, I think, too many instances in Pennsylvania of people and organizations that have some amount of tunnel vision, right? They're in a specific place, they're doing a specific thing, and we need to be building leaders, grassroots, everyday people who see the bigger picture, many of the things that you talked about, John, the reality that these issues are interconnected, they're not separate. The Poor People's Campaign looks at and addresses the issues of systemic racism, poverty, environmental devastation, militarism and the war economy, and the distorted moral narrative of white Christian nationalism, which holds that distorted narrative holds these systems in place. And we need to be building in this way of really developing leaders who understand that these issues are interconnected, and fundamentally, we've got to be working on them together. Across urban and rural areas, this is very, very, very important. Another of the reasons why I think the PA statewide coalition is so important, because it is connecting and committed to connecting people across the urban and rural divide, which is one of the biggest divides we have here in Pennsylvania. We have to recognize that we're in a special position in the country. This is the Keystone State. The Keystone is a piece of stone that holds the structure together. That's literally what a keystone is. And what we are in Pennsylvania is that we are part of so many different regions of this country. We're part of Appalachia, which goes all the way from New England all the way down into the South. We're part of the Rust Belt, right? We're part of we're connected directly to the Midwest. We're right on the Mason-Dixon line. So right below us is Maryland and starting into the South. We're part of the Northeast. We're part of the corridor between New York and Philly and DC. So we're actually, in some ways, we're positioned as a keystone in terms of this entire country. And we have, and we draw on all of those realities in where we sit. And we're a state of 13 million people, over 5 million of whom, almost half of the state, we consider and count as poor and dispossessed by the calculations of the Poor People's Campaign, which looks at 200% or below of the federal poverty line. So we look at 200% or below the federal poverty line is poor and dispossessed. And in Pennsylvania, over 5 million of our people are living at 200% of the federal poverty line or below. That's a lot of people who can be organized. MLK, one of the people who started the original Poor People's Campaign, said, there are millions of poor people in this country with little or nothing to lose. If they can be helped to take action together, they will do so with a freedom and a power that will be a new and unsettling force in our complacent national life. And that is really our job, is to build that new and unsettling force. And that new and unsettling force has to be built across the urban-rural divide. It has to be built across the racial divide. It has to be built across the party divide, including all poor and dispossessed people here in Pennsylvania and around the country. So what I want to just briefly say, and I don't want to take up too much more time, because I know that this is about mobilization, and I want to talk about the fact that mobilization comes from organization, right? And so I want us to think about how we are organizing, not just for ourselves as individuals, but with the people around us, with the community around us, because we can think about the political system, and oftentimes we do, but what we think about less is the economic system that underlies the political system. And I really appreciate you bringing this point forward earlier, John, that there's a ruling class and a working class. And sometimes we think just about the politics. We think about who's in office or who's not in office. We don't think about what are the limitations, what are the constraints around what can happen politically based around the economic system. And I think that what we see, especially in Lancaster, is that, Lancaster City, for all intents and purposes, there's an infusion, a massive infusion of capital coming into Lancaster City. There's a ton of development. It's a place where capital is actually flowing in. There's a lot of investment. There's a lot of projects and development taking place. But of course, at the same time, there's a hospital closure. There's state violence taking place, right? So it's not designed to benefit everyone in the community, but it is a place where capital is flowing in. There's other places in the state where capital is flowing out, right? Or even in the county. So we have to also look at that reality, right? When we think about, so then what is the economics that underlies what is taking place in Lancaster City? And I think part of what it is that, there's a need to push poor and dispossessed people out of the city, right? And that's something that we see happening across any city that's gentrifying, whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's Pittsburgh. And when the ruling class removes our healthcare, our education, our housing, right? That's out of reach. What do they put in its place? Violence, incarceration, criminalization, right? Those are the things that come to replace having our basic needs met. So this is something that is not just happening in Lancaster, it's happening all over the place. And I would say that one of the things that we need to do to organize to attack that problem is to, again, not simply as individuals, but collectively build permanent organization. That's something that, Put People First and other groups have tried to do. We fought the closure of St. Joe's, UPMC. We used that to bring pressure into the city council to pass a unanimous resolution for the public health care advocate, which is something that we're pushing at a statewide level. We fought the water shutoffs during the pandemic and prevented water shutoffs happening to renters in the city. And making the links between the city and the county and between healthcare and state violence. Ricardo Munoz, who you mentioned earlier, was in a mental health crisis. A quarter of the people killed by the police are in mental health crisis. So when healthcare is taken away, we know that's going to result in more state violence. It's going to result in more people being killed by the police. So these, like we said before, these issues are interconnected. And what shifts the political terrain is what happens on the movement level, on the ground. That's what actually really shifts the political terrain. It shifts what's politically possible. And that work is not easy. It's not flashy. It's not really ego boosting. It's very difficult work. It's the kind of work Carmina's doing and others are doing. It's very, very, very difficult work to bring people together, to develop leaders who are clear, confident, committed, and connected. But that's ultimately what changes political systems. And I just want to, I want to emphasize that, because I know people are going to say, make comments and about the importance of the elections in the political system. And I hear that. And we need more people. We need more people organizing and building permanently organized communities, because ultimately that is what sets the tone for what happens politically. And I think you saw that during the uprising this summer, past summer. But the question is, building those moments into permanent organization, which is what we've tried to do in the Poor People's Campaign and in Put People First Pennsylvania. So I'm really grateful to be here with you and excited to think about these questions of how we unite our class, how we overcome divide and conquer, and how we build permanently organized communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Najmi. I really appreciate your time tonight. Very honored to have you here, and that was really powerful. Thank you so much. So now we're going to transition over to our open discussion with Carmina. And Carmina, I'm going to let you take over here.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We really want this to be an engaging process. So I want to open, and I guess, John, they have to mention that they want to be unmuted.
So what they have to do, and I'll explain it. So Teddy's the host, so he'll be able to see. All they have to do is raise their hand.
Okay.
And Teddy will be able to see all the, I see him right now. See JP already. And Teddy will be able to admit them, and they'll be able to engage and talk.
Okay, thank you. So before Teddy opens you up, what we want to hear is from you guys in terms of what does mobilization in Lancaster look like behind these issues? What do you want to do? And if that's the case, whatever the case is, what is your suggestion to get everyday regular people to join this effort? So I'll open up the floor and then we'll just engage back and forth. We have a set of ideas, but we want to hear from you first. People that are on the ground, internal, external stakeholders. So I guess JP.
I am unmuted.
Go ahead, sir.
You're hearing me okay? I'm here to learn answers. I don't have much answers after dealing with local, state, and federal government for way too long. That's why this discussion is more than welcome. I did throw in my 2 cents and the lady, thankfully, was building on it anyway, that elections have consequences. I think where I grew up in Massachusetts, a former Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, put it pretty well, that all politics is local. So to try to keep sane, I can recommend focusing, especially this year, on our local elections, such as Teddy's run for school board in Manheim Township, so we can better educate our children to be better residents and citizens. But to the question of what we've been doing and what we've learned, we need to all work together in conjunction, like we did with Crash. I have a heart for persons in the criminal justice system. It's a local reform group that we've had some victories, we've had some defeats, but working with other groups like Crash, we put it on the front page and we forced the local media to, at least for a couple of days, focus on the need for prison reform and reform in the criminal justice system. So yeah, we can get this done via elections and popular action. That's why I'm so happy to be part of the group around here, but to pick up more tips from the Poor People's Campaign and other like-minded groups, because it's class warfare. It's divide and conquer. It's been working. We had 4 years of Donald Trump. I still need someone to explain to me how that happened, but hopefully it's over. Thank you.
Okay, Teddy, the next person that raised their hand.
That was the only one that we saw with the hand raised at the moment.
So guys,
So
this
Jenny,
is about,
sorry.
Sorry.
There's a good question, a live question.
Okay.
Jenny put in the chat, and it says, "How is a competent leader developed?" And I think that's a good one that all of us that are panelists can kind of start to bounce around and talk about lively here. And
So-
what do you think?
John, do you have an answer? Because I certainly do.
I do.
I have thoughts.
I have several thoughts too. I can go first. You can go first. Doesn't matter to me.
Okay, so for me, what I think develops a competent leader is making sure that they have the facts, the information, and resources to be an effective leader. I have been working with some younger organizers, and I just had an event on Wednesday where we had a conversation in a barbershop with these young Black men from one part of my county in Norristown and one of the chiefs of police. And they were talking about their mentoring program, and the root of it are, feeling disenfranchised and neglected in their school systems. But what was interesting is they didn't know how to navigate beyond the mentoring, meaning that there's in our school systems in Montgomery County, Black boys are getting incarcerated before they leave high school, 53% greater than white. And so I asked them, do you know who the DA is? Do you have the stats on memorandum of understanding and the stats of the incarceration rates and what you can do? So a competent leader really needs to know all the things they can do to effectively navigate the people to talk to, the awareness of the issues, and being able to focus on the facts and the evidence to go into a room and command attention. So that's very important. So we got a lot of the facts from part one. Now we need all of you to work with us for part two and part three. And part three is action. So for me, a competent leader has all the tools and equipment they need to be strategically powerful.
Awesome. I agree totally. I think for a competent leader to be developed, there's like two soft skills I think they need, right? And I think they need to be able to listen effectively, like, because when you are leading, whether we're talking about this movement or anything for that, even like a sports team, right? People have to believe and be able to ascribe to your message. And so and I'm talking about effective leadership, because we've seen poisonous leaders, right? There are such thing as poisonous leadership, right? We've seen that throughout this country. I do not have to even give you examples. What I'm trying to say, to be an effective leader in the movement that we're trying to advance human rights, I think there's a level of empathy that has to naturally be there. I don't think that's born or developed. You naturally have to have some sort of empathy, empathetic side to you. And I think you have to be an effective listener, because when it comes down to this, and I'll give personal perspective here. When it comes down to this, there's a lot of people who have been harmed here, especially in Lancaster. And whether you are leading from the front or leading in a capacity that's more policy change wise, or leading from a capacity over social media, we have different leaders here, right? I think you have to be able to hear the people who have been harmed, if you're not one of those people, right? So that you can effectively communicate and advocate those needs, so that you will avoid the big thing that I see a lot of liberals have right now, where they're essentially having educated banter on social media, right? Where this is just an exercise for them to get rid of or disparage white supremacy. Go write a book about that. If you want to help the community, though, you do have to be empathetic. You do have to hear their needs and go forward to pursue them, or you can join them and follow. But you can't. It's just, those are a couple of the intangibles that I think you need to have those two things. That's a great start. That's a great start. What next? Anybody else have any feedback? I saw a couple of oh, I see that. You see that, Teddy? Hi, Sean.
Hey,
Hi,
Sean.
hi. Yeah, thank you. So it kind of in that spirit. So I'm a teacher with the school district of Lancaster, and I'm here for exactly to sort of listen to what you're talking about and to kind of understand, what needs the community has specifically. And I think I'm sort of really excited to hear everything that's being said right now. And to me, I guess what I'd like to say that I could bring, hopefully, is educators, and we have a lot of teachers right now who are very concerned about social and economic justice, and we've been beginning to organize a little bit more within our district, and trying to reach out to see what else we can do. And I think that there's a lot of potential among the teachers to try to help where we can. And I think I'm here to kind of let everyone know that we're sort of here to be of service, and I want to listen and find out what we can do. My interests extend then out to being able to organize regionally with other educators. So we have all these little disparate teachers unions. We have all these districts in this county, and that puts us in a vulnerable position from a labor union standpoint. And I think that one of the things we need to do as a labor organization is make that stronger. Um, and so I'd like to connect with teachers from around the county, and hopefully then also use that community to focus our efforts on what we can do for our families, and we're in the communities where we spend our time. And so I'm just really excited to hear this, and I'm just sort of offering my services, and hopefully we can, move forward together. But we have a good group of teachers who is, interested in getting involved in some of this work. So, appreciate you hearing me out.
Awesome. And Sean, I'm gonna give you our contact information. So we definitely, when we hear organization and teachers, we definitely want to make sure we put you in the right spot to be successful.
Sean
And
has it. Sean is a very is I consider Sean a good friend, at least. Sean, I don't know if you consider to be one, but
No, thank you, Nicole. Yes, of course. Yeah, I'm so grateful for I mean, you helped us out a lot, and Nicole was, yeah, one of the first people I got in touch with, after the summer protests, to try to make some connections. And this is something that I've been trying to do. So not to cut you off, Nicole. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, John, I'll make sure I add Sean's contact information onto our spreadsheet so that you have it. And
Sean,
then
we'll be talking soon.
I have a response for
Nice.
Sean though, because Sean, here's the thing, fair funding is going to be an issue. We need teachers to constantly communicate with us some of the perils that you're going on within. And you were going too fast, but I'm going to look up the data for your school district. If we focus on the economically disadvantaged percentage, like Sean, do you happen to know you're in Lancaster City, so that's the school district, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking it up while I'm talking to you, but do you have any idea the percentage of economically disadvantaged? What's the name of the high school?
So the high school is McCaskey. I teach at Lincoln Middle School. I mean, we're 100% free lunch.
Wow.
We provide breakfast and lunch every day for our students. We provide uniforms, when we go to the
So
thrift store
I
for
have
our
a
students.
question. It
Yeah,
says Lancaster County CTC, Brownstown, Mountjoy, and Willow Street. Am I not looking at that? Or is it
those are
Lancaster City?
it's Lancaster City.
Oh my. You
Yep.
guys have a lot of school districts.
Like
Yes,
18, I
ma'am.
think.
We have
Okay,
18
so
schools in our district. Yeah. And I mean, we're not even the only school district that operates within the sort of city limits. I mean, yeah, like but we're big. We have almost 1,000 teachers, and we have, the students on top of that. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but yeah, 18 buildings.
So one of the things that's going to be essential is, and this, I'm connecting the dots with the other school system, Johnstown, the city of Sharon and Mercer County, Williamsport, Wilkes-Barre, all those school districts have huge deficits. And I'm going to dissect that information, Nicole and John, because I'd be really interested to find out how much funding Lancaster City gets from the state. When you have these high percentages of economically disadvantaged school systems in rural counties in Pennsylvania, I realized that they're not using Title I funds in the appropriate areas to assure that kids are coming out competent to thrive in the workforce afterwards. So you guys can be of service to us in educating us on some of the things that we need to know on the inside. And one of the things that I'm doing, I do a student ambassadors program on cultural proficiency and race and equity in Montgomery County. We are equipping our students to be able to testify to the education committee in General Assembly. I strongly believe that we've got to empower the kids with a basic knowledge of what fair funding for all these other school districts means. And I think that the Republicans will hear more from the students. The students have a greater impact than adults. So Sean, without taking this part over, I just want to say that. So Nicole and John, thank you. Let's stay connected. I want to dissect that information because that becomes very relevant as an economic justice issue for Lancaster City.
Yeah, and we have part of our. I'm on an advocacy committee with our union. It's just a small group of sort of more radical educators, and we have a group that's focused on fair funding. And so that's actually the only piece of common ground right now that we have with our superintendent. So we're trying to get that message out to our educators. We have a lot of people who are interested in that.
Oh my
The other
goodness.
thing, yeah. So I
I'm
love to hear
looking
what
at
you're
your
saying.
district, 90.7% are economically disadvantaged. And when it's at that rate, then that's when they give it 100%. And I'm just going to see whether they accept Title I funds. Keep talking.
Yes, and we do. And I
I'm
think
flabbergasted.
the fair funding is a big issue. Another big issue right now that's coming up, especially for our district at the moment, is the SROs. And so we also have a large group of teachers. I mean, our teachers generally can be more conservative than the area in which we teach, which is one of the issues that we're trying to work on in our advocacy group. But we do have a good group of teachers who is really trying to get out in front of this and try to make a change in our schools, because we do have police officers in all our middle and high schools. And I'm trying to not have that happen anymore. And we're building a coalition of people who are sort of on that side. And the district right now is actually looking for input from the community. And so they have a thought exchange link. I can share that with the group if that's not out there already. But that's one of the other issues that we're facing right now that I think has a really big community impact, because we're trying to come at it from the point of view of we can make schools just as safe, if not safer, without them. And we can remove, the single biggest threat to people of color in the history of the world, from their buildings, and we can make it easier for students to learn. So that's what we're trying to focus on too, in addition to the fair funding.
So Nicole and John, I really would like to work with you guys on this. I'm looking at your data. This is the only school district that I have seen at the high school level that is using Title I funds. So the breakdown for the high school at McCaskey's, 90% are economically disadvantaged. English as ELL is 20%, special ed is 20%, gifted is only 2.3%. But 85% of the population is non-white, is non-white.
Non-white, right.
Unbelievable. So Nicole and John, we got to work on this with this as well. So I'm flabbergasted. Thank you, Sean, for talking, because this is so important. And this, because what I use to determine, like Montgomery County, there's a perception that there's only two major neighborhoods or areas in Montgomery County that are poor, Norristown and Pottstown. Well, we have 23 school districts in Montgomery County, and over 18 of them have high, well, for us, poverty rate is above 20%. The highest is 76. But the point is all those other school districts are pockets of poverty nobody talks about. And the disaggregated data gets lost because our county is 80% white. So if you guys are 85% non-white, then you become a model for the state on how to best utilize and focus on the resources. Is that okay that I said that, John and Nicole?
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
All right, we have 2 hands raised. We have Jenny. I'm going to give Jenny the space first, and then we have Marty Kelly afterwards. So here you go, Jenny. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, so my ears perked up when I heard Sean talking. So from a teacher standpoint, I am recently involved with an initiative at Millersville University. It's the Social Justice Summit for Educators. And this is, I guess I'm putting this out to both Sean and to Crash to see if there is any way there can be some collaboration. I think that the work that this commission is planning to do, so their mission is to provide a safe space for educators to share their lived experiences and to network with other educators in an effort to support social justice for all people. And so one of the ways that this happens is every other month, the summit offers a workshop for educators. And we're in process with securing presenters to present, but it could also be a good place for networking to happen. At our session this past month in February, we had, I think, over 100 educators. And 2 months ago, they had, I think, like 25. So I think the word is getting out that this summit is in process, and I think people are interested in doing the work. And I'm just wondering if this might be a good connection for Crash, as well as for any work that Sean has described doing.
Yeah, most definitely. It sounds like an excellent opportunity. Anything that is, as Nijmi said earlier, organizing, right? Organizing and the mobilizing, right, portion of those together. So collaborating, we will definitely get behind that and see how we can best assist. And more importantly, see how we can get you networked with the right groups here. And just to make sure that you guys are need however we can help.
Am I still?
Right.
Oh,
Do you,
Yeah, you're still on.
Would it be helpful for me to put a link to that summit, the Social Justice Summit for Educators, in the chat, and then
put it in the chat and I'll
yeah.
reach out to you personally. Well, actually, one of us, you can either reach out to me. I have your information. I'm on Facebook, but yeah, put it on here, and one of us will reach out to each other, and we'll put the wheels forward. And also, if are you comfortable with? Well, we'll talk about that later offline.
Okay.
Because I will then, if someone wants to connect with you and collaborate as well, who might not be connected with you here personally, I will also, what's it called, introduce them. I can do that.
Yep, that would be great.
Thank you very much, Jenny. And
Yeah,
next I'll be putting Marty the chance to speak. Thank you. Oop, hold on one second. I missed something here. Okay, I'm gonna have to put Kelly up as a panelist just to be able to do this, just because there's something with the Zoom. So here we go.
You can move them right back, her right back. It's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, thanks so much for this session and for the earlier one that you had as well. And I look forward to the next one. I am very interested in this conversation we're having right now. And Carmina and Sean, I wonder whether there has been any conversation about integration of school districts. Fair funding, I've been a part of, certainly money is very important, and it's been established already by law that these schools should have better funding. But there also has been a lot of studies of the value of having students, all levels of economy studying together, and that there is a positive influence in the poor student with having a better student with them. Lancaster City is I live in Lancaster. I'm very familiar with Lancaster City schools, and as Sean said, there are so many schools, not just in Lancaster, but right outside of Lancaster, and they are very successful schools. And we can look at all the reasons for that, but there could be redistricting in the city itself that would make a difference of who is going to which schools. And I just wonder if there's conversation on this. I know it's a hot topic, but I think it could be a really helpful part of the solution. It could be part of the solution to the school difficulties. So I just wonder if anybody's talking about it.
I haven't heard anything about it, but again, that's my focus is heavily on the criminal justice side, and I'm learning a lot on the fly right now about some of the school district stuff, being that we just had two educators recently speak. And yeah, Millsy brings up a good question. How do you measure better schools per se? Because that is kind of, when you look at it, and I want to kind of bounce off of that for a second, is the standards of like actually measuring, right? It's, you can get into a slippery slope because, hold on one second for me. Yeah, you can get into like a slippery slope on like what are your metrics, right? Because as we know, in some of these marginalized communities, the tax dollars is where that disparity, that discrepancy or kind of comes in. And then if you look at like standardized testing and measurements, those also create disparities amongst different groups of people. So it is kind of hard to actually measure that. So I do, but any one of our panelists want to jump in and answer? I can't be too much more of an asset on that conversation.
So I am a public education advocate. I measure a great school district, what it does for the weakest, most marginalized students and their outcomes. And I just say off the cuff, looking at McCaskey, the fact that they recognize that Title I funding is needed and utilized at the high school level, that alone makes me think that they're doing something. They get it, because the difference between state funding and federal funding is the federal funding has mechanisms and measurements to make sure the students are achieving academically. So you have to listen and see what plans the administrators have, the superintendent, from the top to the bottom, how they're engaging the weakest link and those outcomes. So, I mean, this is a side jump because we really wanted to focus on what we can do for Lancaster City, but it's all encompassing because it deals with the economic inequalities that exist in your county. So that's how you would measure it. That's how I measure it. What you can do for your weakest link, what you're doing for your weakest link, and ensuring that they have equitable access to successful academic achievement.
I just want to bring it back too, as we're talking about schools, right? That it starts with the school board, which
right.
Local municipal elections, like where I live in Manheim Township, we flipped the school board to blue, right? We're a Dem school board. Funny how our school board votes like Republicans do, not like Dems do, even though we flipped them blue. So we gotta be paying attention to who is running in those local elections and making sure we're getting people on those school boards that are gonna run the administration and the school the way we need them to be run. So they care about the marginalized families and the students that are there. Because in a lot of the outlying districts, I don't really think they do. So that's my take.
That's great. Teddy, is anybody else raising their hands? Because one of the things that we wanted to talk about is how we can mobilize and get people for Lancaster City. So I don't want to move away from the education stuff if there's people waiting.
We don't have any hands raised or any pending questions. So
okay, John Tell, is John Tell still on the call?
Yes.
So Jontel, what kind of ideas do you have? You're running for
Let me
something in
get
the
him on
county,
one second.
correct?
Hold on, let me get him on one
He's
second. Let me
running.
just,
He's running for city
there we go.
council here in Lancaster.
Can't
coming
tell
up.
you have the ability to talk, I think.
Okay. Because I'd be interested in what you think on a citywide level. You gonna unmute yourself, Jontel? Okay.
There I go. I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, now you're good.
Okay. Repeat that question again, the overall question.
So the overall question is, I knew you were running for something in the county or the city, and
Yes.
I'm interested in what your thoughts of what can be done at the Lancaster City level. We have some ideas, and I guess after you speak, we'll present it. I'll share, but you're running for city council. What are some of your things that you think the people can do to either support your vision or the needs that are needed to be addressed by the residents of Lancaster City?
Right. Well, I think at the basic level, what we need to start off with is things such as this. But it comes along with having youth involved. Youth and elders really we need to bridge those gaps. I think that's the really big component that I see missing from so many different summits and meetings and what have you. And I've been in a lot in like the past 2 months, local and statewide, and I'm seeing the same recurring thing. Like everyone's coming to the same conclusions, but there still aren't enough various different groups coming together. Like we're all here in this meeting, but I don't know if there are any kids listening or any young adults or teenagers. But I feel like that's the one component that we're missing, because we're not hearing where they're thinking about where we should be going. And let's face it, 10 and 20 years from now, they're going to be the ones that's going to be in this situation and dealing with it heads on. So I think that's a start. But with the city overall, one of the main issues that we need to be talking about is the way that people without shelter are being treated, and preventative measures that are not being taken to kind of help people that are facing those situations. So housing security.
You muted
Awesome.
yourself, Jontel.
No, he was. I think
No,
he was done.
yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So,
thanks, Jay.
John, can I ask you to dive in, because I really want you to talk about the accountability of who's running the city and what we can do to address that, because I was moved and motivated by your words before. So when you have these pressing issues that you think are acute, who oversees that, and who can we make accountable of that in your city?
Yeah. It all depends on what the matter is. So, are
Okay.
we pressing? So let's for 1 second. So, because like it looks like we have a couple of overlapping issues. So let me focus and hunker down here to answer your question, Carmina. I think whenever we're looking at an issue that affects anyone here in Lancaster County, we have to dig in and see what institution is it, right? Is it an institution that the people that run it are elected officials, or are they hired? And if they're hired, who do they answer to? So obviously, as Nicole already mentioned, you're looking at the school board if we're looking at the school, right? And we're looking at, and that becomes a political issue. And more than likely, 9 times out of 10, all of these human rights issues will intersect on the political spectrum. So here locally in Lancaster, right, we are looking at what are the needs. And so you can look at it from a city level, or we can look at it from the county level. On the city level, you're going to look at the executive arm, which you're looking at Mayor Deneen Sirachi.
Okay.
That's one person. Then you have your city council.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is all city related issues that might affect the exact level of it, and things that might need to be addressed you would bring that to one of those bodies. Now, that's not always the case, right? Sometimes if we're looking here, so I'll give you a big example of last in 2020, a lot of people were very disturbed with the old chief, right? And so giving you that example, before the mayor and him parted ways, right? A lot of people were very concerned with issues, whether that be protesters being what is it, non-lethal ammunition being used on them, or just like things that were very concerning. I had several people come up to me, who who takes care of the chief? Who does the chief answer to, right? And so that's where I was like, that's a situation where the mayor is somebody who appoints the chief. So looking forward, then, are we looking at changing legislation? Because if we're looking at changing legislation, right, we have in Pennsylvania, we have some pretty tough legislatures that we have to always fight. So we're looking at State Senator Scott Martin and Ryan Almond, I believe is his last name. Like if I'm wrong about his last name, please correct me. Those two, especially Scott Martin, they are tough opponents because they will continually to fight us on issues that we can't even get Scott to the table about $15 an hour, right? And like these are things that have been going on for years and years and years. And he's very staunch and stuck on that, right? So we're looking at, if you're literally trying to change legislation, we have an issue where we are looking to fight that, but we have to be super organized because we have two Republicans with a heavy Republican base in the county, and you're not going to get that legislation partnered or pioneered by those two necessarily. Um, at the federal level, if we're looking at a federal, our representative here in Lancaster is Lloyd Schmucker. He's another guy. I'm not here to give my personal perspectives on these people. Lloyd is also another opponent who's a tough person, who is a staunch Republican base that he plays to. So another person where if you want something changed, you need strong organizational efforts. I'm talking petitioning. I'm talking thousands organized around the movement, solidifying. And this is why we're talking about mobilization, right? Our two federal senators are Bob Casey and not our inspector. He died. Oh my lord, who's the second guy?
Toomey, Pat.
Thank you. I just pulled up a dead senator. I'm so sorry.
Like really old school. So you bringing up somebody that's been dead for 20 years almost.
My mom is from Philly, so that's why I couldn't thinking about it. Anyways, thank you, Millsy. What's up, Teddy?
We have JP also had his hand raised. I don't know.
I see him. I'm trying to. Okay. So Carmina's question is so. I want to make sure I touch on every level of it, of Carmina's question, so that we can. I can at least arm you guys with what you need to get accomplished. So that's the state and federal level, right? And that's the legislative side of it, right? Now, if you want to look at some change from the communities, the county side of it, there's the Lancaster County Commissioners, and now they do a lot of moving and shaking, and they actually, when it comes to like the money in the county, that all the institutions where you're looking at the county prison and so on, there's where you're going to want to talk to Josh Parsons, Ray D'Agostino. Sorry if I messed your name up, and then Craig Lehman.
Craig Lehman.
Thank you. And so they are the three that are going to be heavily involved with county initiatives and funding. And so you think about it, as a county residents, you get your tax dollars to fund the things that go on here in the county. And so think about that. So, out of the budget, let's go over the county budget for 2 seconds, because this is really important. Out of your tax dollars, right? 25% of your tax dollars are going to fund the county prison. 1 out of 4. Why are we not asking more questions about that? their budget's like a little bit over, I want to say 120 million. I can't remember the spreadsheet off the top of my head. But again, there are a lot of things that when you talk about organizing around, those you got to look at it from a county, state, federal, or city level. Now, luckily here in the city, we have say what you want or say what you need. We have a mayor's office that they can be accessible. They have talked to us, and you can reach out to them through I think Millsy, I see you in the chat. She's somebody I know people have told you can reach out to her. So the big difference, right, is we here in the city, you do have an accessible city council and mayor's office, right? But the issues, once you kind of get off at a state and federal level, you do have to be extremely organized, and you do have to mobilize and bring the people behind them. Thank you for listening.
This is where it gets tricky when we start talking about like a Department of Health, right? That's on the county level. Like that's the commissioners. Like that's not going to the mayor. We can get Deneen to support us. We can ask her to and to talk about it. You know what I mean? But
we'll get to that in a little bit.
This is where everything that John just said in the past 10 minutes was so good and so educational, because there's so many different things and so many people get the runaround because they don't know the right person with the right power to go to. And so they just get pointed. Oh no, you need to talk to this person. Oh no, you need to talk to the DA. Oh no. And they just run people in circles and nobody ever gets anywhere. So I wanted to say that, sorry.
No, you're totally fine. And so, yeah, I'm sorry I took so long. But that's pretty much the layout. And if you have an issue with just definitely there's good organizations here to talk. So, all right. Did I answer your question good enough, Carmina? Do you need me to...
Yes, I'll wait till the other people want to speak and then let's get into some next steps.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna let JP on first, and then we also have John Tell next again.
I'm back. Thank you for everything we're doing tonight. Is John Tell still on the line? I'm hoping.
Yes.
Yeah, he is. He is.
My question is to you, sir. First of all, how do you do?
I don't think you guys are going to be able to hear each other at the same time because you're both attendees, but you can ask them and we can. Oh, no. All right. Teddy, bring John Tell as a panelist.
All right. Sounds good.
And thank you.
No problem.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Yeah.
John Tell, can you hear me good?
Yes. What's up, brother?
How do you do?
I'm pretty good. How about you? It's nice to officially meet you.
It's about time. I want to explore, and if you don't mind, can you give us your elevator speech on why you want to serve on council, please?
JP, I don't mean to. We want to kind of
hold on, John. If you don't mind, I have a reason for that. Because John Tell was asked a question, and I don't think he had the chance to answer it because that was going to be my second and final question. He can give us 30 seconds on that, if you please, indulge me, and then I have a method to my madness.
Yes, of course, not a problem, because I think it does also encompass and sum up the question that Carmina had, and also kind of doubles down on what you and Nicole had spoke of as well. So one thing I do want to sum up right off the bat is that Lancaster city officials, no matter who is in power, gives the runaround. They constantly point fingers at, oh, well, you need to go to this person, you need to go to that person. So it confuses people. And what I think the major issues are, at least for me in the platforms that I want to run on, the first thing is housing security. That contributes to a lot of different issues, whether it's gentrification or criminalization of the homelessness issues. It goes back to housing security. There are 30,000 people or more, at least in Lancaster City, that are on the verge of being on the streets, or 1 or 2 paychecks away from being on the street. So that's a big issue. And then we also have policing and the disparities between having a sense of community. Police don't engage with people, especially youth. And if they were seen as people that actually conversed with people instead of just intimidating and controlling, there would be better rapport for us to have maybe a town hall meeting where citizens and police would actually get some kind of conversation going. And then the last thing is small businesses. We have many businesses run by BIPOC, people of color, immigrants, Hispanics in our city, but they barely keep up. They're barely keeping up a thinly veiled paper of food security. We really don't have, if we took out all the bodegas and the hoods, we would have nothing. We need more, but we also need a diverse arraignment of a mixture of different businesses downtown that reflect the population of minorities that we actually have, and a diverse arraignment of them, not just barbershops and food stores. We want things that our people can patronize, and when we walk downtown, we can't afford the things that are that we see in these businesses. And I think all of those three things combined form like one big circle of issues that if we focused on all of those things at once, a little bit at a time, I think we could make some kind of effective change.
Thank you. May I then go in for the punchline? First of all, I've become well aware of you. I just haven't had the chance to find you. So this is awesome. Number two, you're singing our songs. Number one, the issue that seems to me to have been my focus the past week here in Zoomland is homelessness. And I've spent the week finally having a Zoom call with the Lancaster County Coalition for the Homeless. And number two, the city needs people like you. I want to do whatever I personally can and get the posse together to get you on the ballot and let the people decide who can best serve city council, because city council is a separate branch of city government.
Correct.
They oversee the mayor's operation administration. I want to see that happen again. Thank you, John Tell. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Carmina, you were about to say something before this is next steps.
Yeah, so I think we should go to next steps because we really want to talk about what does mobilization look like and who can help who. We had some ideas, and I've heard a couple more that we could potentially look into. John Tell made a suggestion for a town hall with the people and the police. I think there's some viability to mobilize people to be more acutely aware and be in attendance for city hall council meetings. And I went and looked that up, and the next dates for city hall council meetings, March 9th, the 23rd, the 5th of April, the 13th, and the 27th. We also talked about, and I'd like to get some feedback if you can put it in the chat box, having a virtual town hall discussion specifically with the mayor. And that's because she's running unopposed. So this would be a perfect time to invite her to a Crash We Can't Wait virtual town hall to focus on inform her of all of the pressing issues that we feel are relevant and get her thoughts on what she can do as mayor. And then I think it's important, Nicole, when you bring up the health department, that we mobilize people to talk about the healthcare disparities, as John pointed out before, to the county commissioners. And so the county commissioners meeting is May 18th, and we could potentially schedule something with the mayor on April 18th, because that's a month away from the primary day. I felt it was really interesting that the commissioners meeting is 10 a.m. on the day of the primary elections. But I'm kind of working back to throw some dates out to everybody on the call to get some ideas. And what we need to do is if there's a consensus to either have the virtual town hall with the mayor, attend the commissioners meeting, even though it's election day, that we can work towards getting people involved and present and active. So between Teddy and John, is there a way that we can ask people to either say yes in the chat box or no or yes to the town hall with the police, making a volume of people be present at the council meetings before election day? I'm just curious, and maybe survey people in the chat
Yeah.
with these ideas.
So we're definitely gonna do. We definitely want to So we definitely want to do that April town hall virtually with the mayor. We want to formally invite her. Thank you so much for that, and we want to make sure that we focus that around our concerns here. And I think, yeah, in the chat, if you could just like put a thumbs up or a yes if you would be okay with a virtual town hall, so let's say around possibly April. I would like some feedback on the virtual town hall portion. As far as what John Teller brought up and having a discussion with, okay, I see a bunch of yeses so far. We probably, this is town halls three.
Okay, great.
So hold on one second. Millsy said
there
have been
three.
town last year with police paused because of COVID, and they will resume with community. I can provide more information.
Well, we want to have a different approach, and what we can do, John, is if we could just and Nejmi, we could talk
hold
about.
On. I want to address what Millsy said. Okay, that's totally fine. We can push the police portion of it back, but we definitely do want to have Mayor Deneen Sirachi.
Yes.
We want to talk to her virtually. We don't need that to be public. I don't want that to be. Awesome. Thank you, Millsy. You've been really helpful. So we want to definitely formally invite her to that, and we can definitely push, especially with we'll be in contact with, especially with COVID concerns. And I think with the police work, you definitely do. I don't know if you do want to make that a virtual town hall. I think we definitely want to make sure that is something in person, because I don't think a lot of the, well, correct me where I'm wrong at, community. I don't think a lot of the community has personally met the new chief yet, or the interim chief yet. So I think you want to definitely make that an in-person event. But after COVID, and hopefully COVID ends before 2021. I mean, so keeping our fingers crossed there. But it sounds like everybody is in agreement with the virtual town hall. And the agenda for that virtual town hall is we definitely want to give our concerns of why we're here, right? And the reasons why we're here, right, is we definitely want to lobby and bring to the point that we want to talk about. And I was looking and did our research. York City has a health bureau. And I'm not talking about the county, I'm talking about the city. And I want to challenge Lancaster City at this virtual town hall to look at and examine us being able to mirror and reflect having a health bureau. Because as we look at one state-sanctioned homicide is too much. We never, ever, 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 ever want any resident of this city murdered by anybody. Especially we don't want it murdered at the hands of the state. We don't want that. One is too many. And we want to look at the proactive issues to make sure that doesn't happen. So having a health bureau and looking into behavioral health, such as mental health services, and making them more accessible to our disenfranchised community. We want to hear and talk to Mayor Sirachi about that. And we want to see what are her plans over the next 4 years. And we want her help as well as a Democrat to help when we go to lobby the commissioners, the county commissioners, to bring a health department back here in Lancaster County. So we want citywide help, and we want her help to help us lobby as well when we go to the commissioners. Now, again, there's certain things that I know that are going to be like roadblocks there. So when I say that at a broad stroke, but I want to make sure we refocus these next steps. We've had several great conversations here. I do not want to throw them to the wayside, but I do want to refocus where we're at here and why we are going to these next steps. Why are we going May 18th to the commissioners meeting, right? We are going there because we want to show that we have mobilized around the initiative that we need a public health department here in Lancaster County. We are done being a reactive county. We no longer want reactionary policy. Reactionary policy is deadly to all marginalized people, whether we're talking about, like I said, life expectancy or reactions to institutions that are not fit to take care of the needs of the most vulnerable populations of our community. So Carmina, I'm so sorry to jump in there. I just wanted to refocus that part of it.
No, and that's fine. John, I have a question though.
Yes.
Hold on. Can you hear me? Because I don't know if I'm muted or unmuted.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
And maybe Nejmi, if you can chime in on this question, it's actually both to you. First of all, clarification. Did you say on the virtual conversation with the mayor that you don't want to have a lot of people on there, or you do?
No. We definitely do. It's
right.
What we want to do is we don't want to go there. So here's what we want to keep that conversation focused.
Right.
I don't want to bring we talked about like 5 or 6 different topics there. We're not going to the mayor about the school district. We're not going there to bring up old grievances, because a lot of people here, we have our issues, right? And I get those. I definitely get those. But I want to make sure that we are here lobbying and fighting so that there will never be another man or woman who is having a mental health crisis being executed by the police.
So question, first of all, so Nejmi, can we ask people on this call in the chat if they could get 5 people to attend that meeting? We have the date and we'll stay connected with everybody, but then that they get 5 people each to rally behind the efforts of the virtual town hall. Is that a good start, Nejmi, to do that with the group that we have and get them to bring people on? Or what would you suggest to get more people that beyond who's on this call? Are you there, Nejmi? Is she still there, John?
She's here.
Yeah, Nejmi, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was unmuting myself. Sorry. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, Carmina, and I'm wondering if there are folks who have, regular meetings already where some of these things can be brought as a follow-up to this, right? So not just the next step to go right into that meeting, but to do some more political education, before that meeting on these issues with pre-existing groups and meetings that might be taking place between now and then. I don't know if there are, but if there are, I think that would be really important.
Awesome.
Okay. So is it possible, John, that maybe we could meet with these group of people 2 weeks before the April 18th to discuss the agenda, be focused, and then from spend March mobilizing people and then having them email you names and contacts so we keep people connected? Or Nicole,
we can do that. We can absolutely do that. And that's the only way this is going to work. Again, we cannot, there's a lot of people who are hurt, and you already know this, just like from where you're from and all over Pennsylvania, there are a lot of people hurting, right? And so we do not want to come in and bombard and lose focus, right? When I'm assuming we'll have an hour or so, right? And we want to make sure we're just as intentional and effective with that time. And so we're most definitely going to have a pre-planning Zoom meeting, and we probably want to have our questions prepared before we even go. But again, this is an offline conversation, but we're not going into this half-cocked by any means. So yes, I think a 2-week pre-meeting, getting focused around public health advocacy, so that, this is something, I don't care who the mayor is, right? Anybody can get behind proactive measures to keep the community safe. It positively affects public safety, positively affects the community at whole, it positively affects healthcare. I can't see anybody not wanting to do that talk. So I think this is a win-win for the community. And I just want to make sure we come in there super focused, super organized, and ready to go.
Yep. So Nicole, then I have a question. If there's anyone that came on new today that Nicole doesn't have your information, can you please put your contact information in the chat box so we can communicate with you about that pre-meeting before April 18th? Is that correct, Nicole? Is that okay to say?
Yes, that's always okay to say. People can put their information in the chat. They can message us on Facebook, on our Facebook page. We can put our email in the chat too. John, will you drop your email in the chat?
I'm going to do that right now. And for Teddy, save the transcripts to this meeting as well.
Right, because that way we can send a reminder out in March about mobilizing 5 people each to attend the April 18th. And then when we do that, we can announce the meeting before the meeting, the virtual meeting. So does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
So in wrapping things up, first of all, I think we're making good time. Wrapping things up, I'll just say this. We're going to focus on the April 18th and the May 18th event or the commissioners meeting, because I believe they're meeting in person, and we'll have a virtual one with the mayor. And we'll look at, in the meantime, school district stuff off the side and see what comes about with the policing issue and keep developing the issues that need to be addressed in the first and second outcome. So those would be our action items after this mobilization effort. So I want to say thank you before I sign off. I think this was effective. We got a broad base. I took notes as well, John, as I promised, and I'll share that with all of you. So I just want to thank everybody. This is a great step forward. We're putting things in place and in action.
So
John?
as we get ready to wrap up here, and there is one question here, Carmina, that I need you to answer. What is going on the 413 meeting taking place with Brandon Flood? I know we mentioned something about that.
For April 3rd, right? It's April 3rd.
Oh, is it 3rd? We have 3rd. Well, I don't know.
No, it's April 3rd because it's the first Saturday. So one of the things that the We Can't Wait Coalition is doing is we are partnering up with the Secretary Board of Pardons, Brandon Flood, out of John Fetterman's office, because they have reformed the office of the Board of Pardons. Lancaster has a very imbalanced incarceration rate, obviously, with the Black and Brown community. Because the office has been reformed, this is a prime opportunity for anyone that you know that has a state record to put their pardons in the pipeline. So on April 3rd, 2 to 4 p.m., we're having a virtual meeting with Brandon Flood about how people can put their pardons in the pipeline. And then after that meeting, we will actually have a physical event where I'll come in Lancaster and help people put all the things that are on the checklist. The big deal here is this is the first time in years that the Board of Pardons office has been proactive and receptive to change. They've waived the fee for submitting your pardon, and they've made the process more efficient. So before Wolf leaves the office and Fetterman, I want people to put their pardons in the pipeline, and we're going to be talking about the data and the statistics with Lancaster on April 3rd. When we have your information, we'll make sure you get that as well. So thank you. That's very important because it all falls in line with the economic injustices and all the things that we talked about, why it would be communicated to the mayor and the county commissioners.
Awesome. Well, listen, I just want to personally take this time out to thank the community, everyone in attendance today. You have been amazing. I just appreciate you giving us the time to help lead in the mobilizing effort and to take that next step into action. I'm humbled. My partner, Nicole, are humbled. Nijmi, Carmina, Teddy, you guys have been a foundational part of this action. And I just want to tell you again from the bottom of my heart how humbled I am to have you here right now with a standing partner side by side. One thing that I wanted to announce to you all before we leave, what Crash is currently working on. Always like to take the time at the end here and let you know what we're working on, because when we're being quiet, that means we're doing our most work. And most recently, for some of you who do not follow me on Facebook, we just recently started our latest initiative called the Central Pennsylvania Equity Project. And this is a project slash initiative that is going to push the needle when it comes to providing equity for our society here in Central PA. And we are going to look to give and present. Thank you, Teddy, for putting up there. We are going to be looking for opportunities to make sure that all marginalized people are touched and affected, and we are giving opportunities. The biggest project that we are working on right now is currently we are looking to end cash bail in Lancaster County and then Pennsylvania. And so what we're doing currently is we're doing a bunch of research. And what we're going to do is we're going to essentially provide that research to the governing bodies or officials around here who make those decisions about if cash bail is something that really needs to stick around here. As Kevin mentioned in the last summit, cash bail is a poverty tax. And it is something that we are, again, it causes disruption. That disruption, when you cannot afford bail, what happens to people who are parents? What happens to people who have jobs? All of these things where we need to be looking at also the economic impact. Think about how much the Lancaster County economy shrinks when you incarcerate hundreds of people yearly. Rough estimates right now, our economy shrinks about anywhere between $5 to $12 million per year because people can't afford the poverty tax. People's relationships with their kids, which then spirals into different custody issues, relationships, which then affect and make a marginalized people that much more disenfranchised. So we look to lobby our personal leadership here in Lancaster County, and we want to look at alternatives such as risk algorithms and risk assessments and end cash bail officially here in Lancaster County. The next fight would be to go to the PA Supreme Court, because this is a fight that can happen in the legislature, but it is a penal code, and that is done in the Rules Committee, and the Rules Committee submits that to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So we are currently working on that. We're working with several individuals and several organizations, and so we are making extreme headway on that. I saw Jeff was in the chat here earlier. He's been very integral in helping out with that. So we are off and running, and I thank you so much for your time today. Just wanted to let you know all the other initiatives are on at the moment. You all have a wonderful evening.
Wait. Can I just say thank you to Nicole and Teddy and Nesby? Thank you. Thank you. I want to publicly thank the three of you and John. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.